guys, welcome back to Southern Gal True Crime. Hope everybody's doing well tonight. It is Friday, so I hope everybody had a fantastic week. Tonight we have our case of the week. I usually bring or share unsolved cold cases, but tonight I have a solved cold case to bring to you. It is a case of Faith Hedgepeth, and it is from 2012, and it is from Durham, North Carolina. Now I say it is solved, and technically it is solved. But there are some people who say that there are alternate theories about what could have happened in this case. There may be more than one offender, and that some people that were involved in this case aren't telling the whole truth to the police as to what they know. But we'll get into all of that. There's a lot of information, so I will try to get to it or get through it as quickly as possible. But first, before we get into it, we have I always feature a missing person. And this information comes from neverforgottenar.org, which is the Arkansas Missing Persons Database. And tonight's featured missing person is Gregory Eugene Curtis. He is just 15 years old. He is a white male, 5'5", 140 pounds, with green eyes and brown hair. He went missing on September 14th of this year, so not too long ago, about a month ago, less than a month ago. And he went missing from Benton, Arkansas. So if you have any information regarding Gregory or his disappearance, please contact the Benton Police Department at 501-776-5948. And as always, I will put a link to this information in the description box. And I encourage you, please share it anywhere and everywhere you can to as many people as possible. It's very important to get this information out quickly. So hopefully we can, most important thing is to keep the missing's name out there so they're never forgotten. All right. With that very important information taken care of, we will get to tonight's case. And like I said, I'll get my slides in order. This is the Faith Hedgepeth case. Now there have been this was a national. It got a lot of national attention. And when I was reading up on it and researching it, it just piqued my interest. So I decided to do my own video on it. Like I said, I'll try to bring this information to you as quickly as possible, but there is a lot of information. There was a suspect that was arrested in the case in 2021, but as of 2023, when I'm recording this, as far as I know, as far as I've read, the case has still not gone to trial. So you know how that goes. Sometimes it takes a while to actually get the case to trial. So we will begin with a brief summary of what happened. So the body of Faith, she was an undergraduate. I can't talk. At the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, or UNC. She was found in her apartment by a friend on the morning of September 7th, 2012. And I'll always forget to say in my videos trigger warnings, because there is some. It's not very. I'm gonna try to keep it as the least graphic as possible, but it was a very brutal crime. So just trigger warning. She had been beaten over the head with a blunt instrument, which was later found to be an empty liquor bottle. And evidence of semen and male DNA was present at the crime scene. And the last time she was known for certain to be alive was much earlier that morning when she went to bed. She and her roommate, who we will get into, had gone, they had studied at a library, then they went out to a club, and they came home. And after returning from the nightclub, the roommate left, and that was the last time that Faith was seen alive. So that is the summary of the events that occurred, and we will get into the timeline as always. So a little bit about Faith. She is described as her family as having a heart of gold and infectious smile that illuminated the room. She was just a few weeks shy of her 20th birthday, so she was 19 when she was killed. She was a junior, I believe, at UNC, and she was majoring in biology. She had hoped to turn her love for children and her strong desire to work with children into a career as either a pediatrician or an elementary school teacher. So she had big goals, wanted a career with children. She continually strived for excellence, even as a young child and a young adult. She was involved in numerous organizations, which reflected her strong relationship with God, and her commitment to her community and her tribe, because she was indigenous. She was a member of the National Honor Society, Project Uplift, Camp Carolina, Summer Bridge, Renaissance, just all sorts of, she was into a lot of activities. She was a cheerleader, and she had been awarded a full scholarship through Gates Millennium Scholars. So, like I said, a bright young girl, had lots of goals and dreams that she wanted to attain in her life, and unfortunately, a monster came along and ended her life. All right, so Faith was killed in September of 2012, but we're going to backtrack a little bit to July of 2012 because this does have some not a bearing on the case, but leads to some persons of interest and suspects. So on July 1st of 2012, Faith's roommate, whose name is Karina Rosario, I hope I'm getting that right. Now, this was this is Eric Jones that is pictured here, which is an ex-boyfriend of Karina, who was Faith's roommate. And I believe I read in one of the articles when I was researching that the apartment that the crime happened in was actually belonged to Karina, and Faith was staying there until the beginning of the next semester when she was trying to get her housing worked out, and she was going to move into her own apartment. I believe I can't remember if it's on campus or off campus. But anyway, so this was Karina's apartment, and Faith was staying with Karina at the time. So back to July 1st. Faith's roommate, Karina, claims that Faith had told Karina that Eric Jones hated Faith, and that he had told her that he, Eric Jones, was going to take the life of Faith if Karina did not get back together with Karina. I know that's a little confusing. So basically, in a nutshell, Eric Jones was an ex-boyfriend of Karina. He wanted to get back with her. He was very intimidating. So he had told Faith that if Karina didn't get back with him, that he was going to kill Faith. So just keep that in mind. Like I said, it's a very confusing the way it's written, but hopefully I explained it well enough. So on July 11th, which was about 10 days after Faith told Karina this story about Eric, Karina takes out a restraining order against Eric after he had kicked 2 doors in her apartment off their frames in anger. So apparently, Mr. Jones had an anger management problem. And I'm trying to remember if in any of the articles I read, if there was any allegations of a DV. But he was a very, like I said, apparently very angry person. maybe a little bit possessive of Karina. So anyway, she got the restraining order. So now we will get to the night that Faith's life was taken. So this was September 6th of 2012. So around 5:45, Faith and Karina, or Faith, had attended a rush event for the Alpha Pi Omega sorority that she was hoping to join. At about 7:15, she leaves the rush and she goes to the library with Karina. They were going to work on a paper together. Get my slides to go. Oh, hold on. Okay. I'm sorry. I always have trouble with my slides. But anyway, so Faith and Karina go to the library. They study. It was the Davis Library, which was located on the campus of UNC. They leave. They stay there till about midnight. And then going into the morning of September 7th, around midnight, Karina and Faith return to the apartment that they share after they study at the library. And then sometime after that, Faith and Karina decide to go out to a nightclub. So maybe they had spent the evening studying, they wanted to unwind a little bit, decide to go out to a nightclub. So they are seen, I believe, on this security footage at this nightclub called the Thrill Nightclub. And they met up with some friends there. Now, Faith was only 19, and I think Karina was 20. But I read that this Thrill Nightclub, it was a nightclub that was geared towards underage college students. They would let the students in. They couldn't drink, of course, but they could dance and, have fun with their friends and things of that nature. So that's how they were able to get into this club, even though both of them were under 21. My slides are not. I'm sorry. I'm having trouble. Technical difficulties as usual with my slides. Okay, so I guess this is the right slide. So one of the strange things in this case is that around 1:23 a.m., which is according to timestamps and security cam footage, Faith and Karina are still at the nightclub. A friend of Faith receives this strange voicemail. So apparently this was what they call a butt dial. So after this friend receives this strange voicemail, and I found a link to the voicemail, and it says, you can see in the picture, they did an analysis of it in 2016, and it reveals some what they call shocking audio. And I do have the link to it. I've listened to it. I will put it in the description, a link to it in the description box. But anyway, so this friend, it doesn't name the friend that that the voicemail was sent to, but whoever it was did turn it over to the police, and it says that the disturbing message potentially features Faith and her killer or killers. But the time would contradict when Faith was said to have returned with Karina to her apartment. And we will get to the time when they left and returned to the apartment. So just as a side note, on this analysis of the video concerning the time contradiction, this, I believe this guy is West is his last name. I can't remember his first name. But apparently, and I think it was sent from an iPhone. Oh, excuse me. But apparently, this model of iPhone had a problem, some kind of problem with timestamps. It would put the wrong timestamp on a voicemail. Now, authorities or people who know, other people who know about this have analyzed it and said that there was not a problem with the timestamp of the voicemail, and that it most likely was a butt dial that came from the club, and that some of the things that are supposedly heard are, it's just, anyway, you can listen to it. Like I said, I'll put a link to it. You can listen to it and watch the video. I believe it's, I found it on YouTube, and I'll let you decide for yourself what you think about this strange voicemail. All right. So, just briefly, this voicemail consisted of, they say it was a three-way conversation. It was 3 minutes long. And they say it was between what sounds like, what, I should take a breath and use my words. 3 minutes long, between what sounds, what that sounds to be between Faith, a male, and another female. It has music in the background. It was timestamped at 1:23 a.m. when the night's timeline has Faith and Karina still at the nightclub. Of course, it was mostly inaudible and of minimal evidentiary value until Crime Watch Daily hired this expert, Arlo West. Apparently, he specializes in enhancing these recordings. And now he claims, so this is just what he claims, this is nothing official. He claims that he heard Faith crying for help, while the female says, "I think she's dying." And the male says, "Do it anyhow." And after a long discussion in which the female seems to get angrier, the male, now what is interesting, he claims that he hears the male and the female use the name Eric and Rosie. And so we go back to, I gave you the information about Karina's ex-boyfriend, Eric Jones. And then they say that Rosie could be Karina's nickname, because her name was Karina Rosario. So just take that with a grain of salt. Now, Faith's father is convinced that what was recorded was his daughter being killed. And of course, this Arlo West agrees. Now, like I said, take it with a grain of salt. It is not official. This was just what this Arlo West, what he came up with in his analysis. All right, moving on. So at around 2:30 a.m., Faith and Karina leave the nightclub. They stayed there for about an hour and a half. Karina later told the police that she was feeling sick and that she wanted to leave. And security cameras at the club did show she and Faith leaving at 2:06 a.m. And now this is the last visual record of Faith anywhere before she was ultimately found deceased. All right, so some more. There's a lot of potential digital evidence in this case. Once again, let me go back and make sure that my slides are in order. So at around 3:40 a.m., a text message is sent from Faith's phone to Karina's ex-boyfriend. Apparently, Karina has a lot of ex-boyfriends. Brandon Edwards. Now, there are actually two messages sent. The first one was sent at 3:40 a.m., and it reads, "Hey, B, can you come over here, please? Karina needs you more. Aha, you know. Please let her know you care." So at 3 minutes later, another text is sent, and this text reads, it just reads "then." And this suggests that in the first message, they meant to say, "Karina needs you more than you know." So he or she, whoever sent the text, presumably Faith, went back and corrected it so it made more sense. All right, so at around the same time, at 3:44 a.m., Karina makes 4 calls to Brandon Edwards. These calls are at 3:44 a.m., 3:52 a.m., 3:55 a.m., and 4:14 a.m., and they all last around 30 seconds. And we will get back to these text messages in a bit. So at 4:27, Karina is picked up by a friend. Some sources say that Karina's friend, Jordan McCrary, picked Karina up from she and Faith's apartment before driving her to another friend's home, which I believe Karina called this friend to, and I can't remember if it was to drive her to this Brandon Edwards home or to somebody else's home. So Karina tells the police that she believed that when she left, she believed that Faith was asleep in her bedroom. But when Karina left, she left the apartment door unlocked. Which to me, when I hear of doors being left unlocked, especially late at night, early in the morning, scares me to death. I keep my doors locked, day or night, doesn't matter. Maybe I'm just paranoid. Maybe I've researched and been into this true crime stuff too long. But to me, it's not paranoia. It's just being safe, because we know in this world there are dangerous people out there, and you never know what can happen. Anything can happen at any time to anybody, anywhere. So anyway, so Faith leaves, Karina leaves, and goes to this friend's apartment, leaves Faith alone there, believes she's asleep, leaves the door unlocked. So around 11:01 a.m. the next morning, Karina, she spent the night with this friend. She stayed there till the early morning. A short time after 10:30 in the morning, she began to try to arrange a ride home. She attempted to call Faith. Faith did not answer. So this other friend, Marisol Rangel, she came and picked up Karina and took her back to she and Faith's apartment. Now, when they arrived there, it was shortly before 11 a.m. They entered. They called Faith's name. Faith didn't respond. So they were looking through the apartment. So in Faith's bedroom, they found Faith. Says, trigger warning. They found her bloodied body. It was wrapped in a quilt. She was partially nude. And of course, they immediately dialed 911 and informed police. Now, I did find, once again on YouTube, the 911 call that Karina made after she came in and found Faith's body. This is another one piece of evidence that is controversial. Some people say that it wasn't actually Karina that was talking to the 911 operator, that it was actually this Marisol Rangel. But like I said, I will put a link to it. You can listen to it and you can decide for yourself. So they called the police. And around 11 a.m., the officers arrive. Shortly after the 911 call, they find Faith deceased in her bedroom. Now they explain, or the way that it was documented by police, that she was hanging half off the bed on her back. She was face up. There was a pool of blood that had gathered on the floor beneath where her head was hanging off the side of the bed, and that her shirt had been pulled up over her face. I don't believe if I read if she was wearing if she still had her pants or underwear on. I don't think she did. Like I said, I'm not 100% positive about that part. So of course they cordon off the area, start their investigation. Once again. Okay, so some of the evidence. Now, this is one of the main pieces of evidence that they collected. Among the evidence, there was this note. It was lying beside Faith's body with the text, and you can read the text. It says, "I'm not stupid, B," which you can deduct what that word is. It's a 5-letter word, starts with a B. And then under that was written "jealous." They say it was sloppily written in ballpoint pen on what was determined to be part of a paper takeout bag. Commonly takeout bag. Police believe that this bag may have come from Time Out, which was, they say, a popular 24-hour restaurant in Chapel Hill that would have been the only place open at that time of night. When Faith and Karina had left the nightclub. They say this restaurant uses such bags, and it was a short distance. Once again, I can't talk. I've got to slow down. Short distance from the nightclub. So investigators, I don't think they ever said whether they had the handwriting analyzed. The website Crime Watch Daily had an expert, Peggy Walla. She looked at the photos of the note, and her main takeaway from that was that it was clean of blood. That was reportedly, because of course, once again, trigger warning, very brutal crime. There was blood everywhere in her bedroom, but there was no blood found on this note. So she deduced that it was either written away from the crime scene, or it was written beforehand and put there after the killing took place. So this is one of the things that is a point of contention for some people when it comes to theories, alternate theories of what could have happened to Faith. So at 3:30 p.m., police search. They get a search warrant for Faith's car, which was a white 1997 Honda. They searched the car for evidence. And at 3:45, it says they officially announced Faith's passing to the general public. So, of course, I'm assuming, or they have to, I'm assuming, they informed Faith's family members and loved ones before they announce it to the public. Excuse me, I'm going to get a drink of water. Sorry about that. I know it's rude to drink on camera, but when I get to talking a lot, my mouth gets dry. Okay. So in September of 2014, now rewind a little bit. Another contentious point in this case is that most or all of the records were sealed in this case, which it happens. Doesn't happen. Well, I can't say it doesn't happen a lot, but it's usually the records aren't sealed. So there were people that were upset that the records were sealed, and why were they sealed? What was there something that they were hiding, which is not once again not unusual for police to hold back certain information that say only the offender would know. They hold that kind of stuff back, certain details about the crime scene. But anyway, so Faith's autopsy report was released to the public in 2014, which was 2 years after she was killed. Once again, trigger warning. It noted cuts and bruises on her arms and legs. There was also blood under her fingernails. The most significant injury was to her head. Investigators listed her cause of death as blunt force trauma to the head, with supporting evidence being the blood splatter on the wall and closet door. Police believe that the weapon had been a Bacardi peach rum bottle from the kitchen because there were tissue fragments and DNA were discovered on the bottle. Additional evidence of blood, tissue, and semen were discovered on Faith's body. There was also a bloody tampon found near her body. And once again, another point of contention with the murder. I'm not supposed to say that word. With the weapon. In some reports, it says that the weapon was a Bacardi peach rum bottle. In other places I've read, it was a wine bottle. And the person that was ultimately arrested for the killing of Faith, his fingerprints were found on one of the bottles, but not the other. So that's another point of contention in this case. But we'll get to that. I think I included that information anyway. So on September 7th, which was in the early evening of September 7th, which is the day after Faith was found, Eric Jones, we all remember that name, is interviewed by the police. Police contact Eric. They questioned him formally regarding Faith's killing. They say he seemed to be a very strong suspect from the beginning. They learned of his history of DV, which I told you I thought I remembered reading somewhere that there was some allegations of DV. Don't know if it was against Karina or somebody else, but at any rate, he was apparently a violent person. And of course, they learned of this threat that he made against Faith. They also found out that the night before, around 6 p.m., he had texted an acquaintance asking for forgiveness for, quote, for what I am about to do. Red flag, obviously. And then he posted the same message on his Twitter feed. 3 days later, he changed the banner on his Facebook page to read, quote, Dear Lord, forgive me for all of my sins and the sins I may commit today. Protect me from the girls who don't deserve me and the ones who wish me dead today. So that's some strange, suspicious things, in my opinion, to be putting out there on your social media the day after a person that you had threatened in the past to get rid of is found deceased. But police got a DNA sample from Jones, whom, of course, they considered a person of interest. After some initial resistance, he did comply. He gave his DNA. But his DNA did not match the sample that they had found at the apartment, and they excluded him as a suspect. So, there we go with Mr. Jones. But one thing with this, they said his DNA was not found anywhere. Well, I don't know. It says it excludes him from these samples that they took from the apartment, which I believe they found on Faith's body, on the weapon, and on the bag. But assumingly, if he was, of course, Karina's ex-boyfriend. He had kicked in the door at one point. He had obviously been inside the apartment, so you would figure that his DNA would be in the somewhere inside the apartment. But sorry. Sorry, I had to switch positions. Getting a little stiff. Anyway, so assumably he had been in the apartment, so you would assume his DNA would at least be somewhere in the apartment innocently, because they say, I've heard experts say sometimes it's not that the DNA is in a certain place, but where it is found is what makes the difference, if that makes any sense. I feel like I'm not making sense today. Anyway, but I don't edit any of my videos, so what you see is what you get, warts and all, mistakes and all. All right, so on also on September 7th, Okay, so this goes back to, this is the 4:16 p.m. of September 7th. Now, this might get a little confusing. I'll try to, at 4:16 p.m. of the evening of the next day after Faith was found deceased. Okay, so I told you about the two texts that came from Faith's phone that said, B, can you come over here? Karina needs you more than you know. Just let her know that you care. Apparently, this is the text that Brandon Edwards sent in reply to those two texts. And he texted, who is this? So apparently he was not sure of who sent the text from Faith's phone. I don't know why he wouldn't be, he wouldn't know who it was coming from. And all the articles, all the sources I used, which is a lot, and I will list every one of the sources I used in the description box. So you can go back and read for yourself and try to decipher some of this. But anyway, so his reply was, who is this? So apparently he was not sure who had sent the text from Faith's phone. He wasn't sure if it was Faith, if it was Karina, or somebody else, possible offender. Although at the time, we're assuming he did not know that Faith wasn't deceased at that time. So on September 9th, a couple of days later, at about 5:30 in the evening, the police contact Brandon Edwards. He agrees to be interviewed by the police. So they talk to him. And also on September 9th, police receive a phone call from Faith's former roommate, whom I'm assuming is Karina, they're referring to. And she states that sometime between the months of May and July 2012, Faith had told Karina that Eric hated Faith and told her he had told Faith that he was going to take her out if Karina did not get back together with him. So this is another threat against made to Faith from this Eric Jones. So we got that. The next day, on September 10th, or about 10 in the morning, investigators did interview Brandon Edwards. Brandon explained to the police that he did not have any contact with Faith or Karina after leaving the Thrill nightclub. Excuse me. So apparently, Brandon Edwards was at the nightclub at the same time that Faith and Karina were there. But after that, he says he did not have any contact with them. So that goes back to, I was wondering if when Karina left the apartment, if she was going to Brandon's apartment, if he's telling the truth. Apparently she did not go to Brandon's apartment. She went to another friend's apartment. Sorry, I just can't get comfortable in this chair. Okay, moving on. I told you there's lots of information here, so just please bear with me. So on September 11th, police got a search warrant for Faith's Facebook account, so they could start building a timeline of events leading up to her death. Check once again. Let me check make sure my slides are in order. Because when I was doing these slides, when I was putting the slideshow together, I kept getting everything out of order. I just want to make sure that I have everything back in order. So we fast forward to November 16th. Investigators speak to an individual named Reginald Leonard Jackson II. So apparently the reason they wanted to talk to Mr. Jackson was because he had been texting Faith. In all the information I read, I could not find when he had been texting Faith, for how long he had been texting Faith, if it was close to the time of her death, things of that nature. So they talked to him on the phone. He at the time he was living in Greensboro, North Carolina, and he agrees to allow investigators to come visit him for an interview. So on November 19th, around 4 p.m. in the afternoon, investigators leave Chapel Hill to go to Mr. Jackson's apartment in Greensboro. When they arrived, they attempted to make contact with Mr. Jackson. He apparently didn't answer the door. The investigators noticed an Acura in the parking lot, presumably belonging to Mr. Jackson. However, the tag did not come back to Mr. Jackson. Upon noticing that Mr. Jackson had pulled into the apartment complex, the Greensboro police run his license plate, and they were able to pull him over because the tags were expired. So that gave them expired license gives them probable cause to stop him. So they just didn't randomly pull him over for no reason. But they did want to talk to him. So like I said, that gave them the probable cause to pull him over. So they pull him over, and at the time, Mr. Jackson informed the investigators that he did know of Faith, but that he did not want to talk to the police about her. And I think in the previous slide, they did get a DNA swab from him. But apparently he just said, he knew of her, but he did not want to talk to the police about her. So in my opinion, that could be a possible red flag. So after they said that, since they don't have any other evidence, Mr. Jackson is not compelled to talk to them after that. All right, so January of 2013, the FBI issues they put together a profile of the offender, an offender profile. They also put together this composite sketch drawing based on the DNA that was found at the scene. So let's say I'm gonna have to get a little bit closer because I can't read this. So of course it was a male, age unknown, body mass unknown, blah blah blah. The most important thing to take from this is that from the DNA, his ancestry was most likely Latino, with dark hair, dark or hazel eyes, and with olive skin tone. So that's the most important thing to take away from that. As far as their profile, they said that the suspect, according to them, this is the FBI profile, the suspect is familiar with the victim and may have lived near the victim in the past. The suspect was unaccounted for during the early morning hours of September 12th, so he would not have an alibi for the time frame of when they believe Faith was killed. The suspect may have made comments regarding the victim to close associates in the past. So before Faith's life was taken, he may have talked about her beforehand. There may have been some change in the suspect's behavior after the crime, which is not unusual, to include an unusual interest in the case. Once again, not unusual, or a change in his performance at work or school. Suspect may have left the area unexpectedly or in an unplanned manner, and he may also have an explanation for the sudden departure. So what I take from this FBI profile is it's just the standard generic blah blah blah. Basically, it's the only way I know how to put it. just the normal, when you have, standardized, just you may change a little fact here or there, but it's just generic. Like I said, to me, the most important thing to take from this was their information that they gained from the DNA as to what he may have looked like and his ancestry and things of that nature. All right, move on from the FBI. In February of 2019, footage from the nightclub shows Faith, and it just says Faith, leaving the Thrill nightclub with an unidentified male. So of course, we know before Faith and Karina had been dancing at the nightclub before they went back there to their apartment. And I'm just assuming, I can't remember, like I said, I have all this information in my head that's not in the slides. but I would assume, because it said that Karina wanted to leave because she was feeling sick, so I would assume, just me assuming, that she and Faith would have left the club together. But it says here that footage from the nightclub says that it shows Faith leaving with an unidentified male. So, a little confusing to me. If you guys have any, if you've read into this case, if you know any different, or just leave a comment. As always, all comments are welcome here, so feel free to leave them. Just always respect the victims families, and each other. I mean, apparently this Thrill nightclub has since closed its doors, and the building where the nightclub was located is now another nightclub called the Zealous. Just an interesting footnote there. So, who do we have as far as persons of interest or suspects? So, of course, at the top of the list was Eric Jones, who was the former significant other of, it says the victim, but it wasn't, who was a ex-boyfriend of Karina, who was Faith's roommate. He was a potential suspect. Police did get a search warrant. They searched his black 2012 Jeep. They took a DNA sample, and as I said earlier, the DNA did not match the sample found at the scene. So that effectively would rule out Mr. Jones as being the offender. So next we have Brandon Edwards, who is another ex-boyfriend of Karina. Of course, I told you about the multiple texts that were sent between Brandon and Faith the night that she was killed. They did take Brandon's DNA. Once again, it did not match any samples found at the scene. So effectively, Brandon Edwards was eliminated. Then we have this unknown suspect. We've already went through the information about that. You can see the composite picture there. We have Mr. Reginald Leonard Jackson. He was the one who said he knew of Faith but didn't want to talk to the police. They did retrieve DNA swabs. Of course, like I said, he told police he knew of Faith but did not want to continue talking to the police. Now, I find interesting that, as far as I could find, I may have overlooked it. It did not say in any information that I read whether or not, and I'm assuming they didn't, if his DNA matched any DNA that was found at the crime scene. Like I said, I would assume that if it did match, Mr. Jackson would have been taken into custody, or at least questioned. And going back to the information that the security camera said that it saw that Faith was seen leaving with an unidentified male, could this Reginald Jackson been the unidentified male that she was seen leaving with? We don't know. Next, we have an individual named David Bell. He had been seen dancing with Faith at the nightclub. He told authorities that he did not know Faith well. Could this have been the unidentified male that Faith was seen leaving the nightclub with? Once again, we don't know. Just a possibility. So, were any of these people that we just looked at persons of interest, suspects, were they the alleged offender? Well, apparently not, because in September of 2021, a suspect was arrested for Faith's killing. This individual was Miguel Enrique Salguero Olivares. He was 28. He was taken into police custody more than 9 years after Faith was killed. Court documents released after the arrest. Once again, we go back to the sealed court documents that people were mad because all the records were sealed. But according to these court documents released after the arrest of Mr. Olivares, revealed that law enforcement used DNA that was found in her SA kit on the wine bottle and the white takeout bag. I showed you the picture of the bag with the message written on it. And this was what was used to identify Mr. Olivares. Using his DNA, law enforcement first identified the suspect's distant family members. So, in other words, they're using genetic genealogy once again. They matched it to these distant family members who shared his genetic information. Those relatives, they gave interviews and samples of their DNA, which helped reveal the source of the DNA that was found at the crime scene, which tied back to Mr. Olivares. Lost my place. So it does say investigators surreptitiously obtained Mr. Olivares' DNA during a DWI traffic stop. They matched the DNA that they got there with that found at the crime scene. And they also linked a palm print that was found on the weapon that was used, which was, they say here, the wine bottle. Going back to earlier, it said that that the weapon was a Bacardi peach rum bottle. This says wine bottle. So therefore, there's the contention between which was used. Was it the Bacardi bottle or was it the wine bottle? But nonetheless, his palm prints were found on the wine bottle. His left palm print was found on there. And as of 2023, Mr. Olivares is currently being held in custody while he awaits his trial. So, like I said earlier, as far as I know, I tried to look up some more current information. His trial, he's still not gone to trial, but with cases like this, it's very complicated. And the investigators said they are still, like I said earlier, there's a lot of they say there's a lot of digital evidence they're going over. So I'm assuming maybe cell phones, computers, surveillance cameras, and things of that nature. Okay. So we're going to go back. That's why I said when I gave you the information about the FBI profile, the most important thing to take away was the sketch they came up with regarding what the offender may have looked like. So on the left is the profile picture they came up with. On the right is Mr. Olivares, the alleged offender. So you can see similarities. Of course, it's not exact, but the thing to keep in mind is they said the offender was most likely Latino. with dark hair, dark eyes, and olive colored skin, dark skin. So Mr. Oliveris matches that, obviously. So I just thought that was interesting. So what do we know about Mr. Oliveris? And that is not much. He was not a suspect when in 2012 when Faith was killed. We went over, he was linked to the case after investigators recovered DNA from the crime scene and matched it to Mr. Oliveris. In a press conference that the authorities held at the time, when they announced their arrest, they did not disclose many details about Mr. Oliveris or any relationship he may have had with Faith. So, it is, as far as I know, unknown if Mr. Oliveris had known Faith or known of Faith before he allegedly took her life, or if it was, some people say it was just a lucky chance encounter, as they call it. Sorry, I'm having to switch positions again. That because if we remember, when Karina left the apartment, she left the door unlocked. Was it just a unlucky coincidence for Faith that the door was left unlocked? He may have been wandering around trying doors. Oh, I found a door unlocked. Oh, here's this nice young lady here, and things went from there. So the arrest warrant showed that Mr. Oliveris lived at an apartment complex along the 4200 block of Garrett Road, which was on the western side of Durham, which is Chapel Hill and Durham, from what I understand, are close there in the same area. Records also showed that Mr. Oliveris was arrested on August 16th in Raleigh for driving while impaired, so DUI or DWI. He listed his employer at the time as a pizzeria, and said that he lived in Chapel Hill. So he was in the area, lived in the area at the time of Faith's death. So, more evidence. So a little bit more, I've searched Google and tried to scrounge together all the information that I could find about Mr. Oliveris, which I said is not much, but I just wanted to give you what I did find. So, as I said, he was 28. He was a Guatemalan immigrant who had been working as a painter and a drywall finisher at the time of his arrest. He would have been 19 years old at the time of the crime, which would be in the same age as Faith. In 2012, when the crime happened, he had only been in America for approximately 2 years, and he spoke little to no English, according to a friend of his. According to court documents, he was convicted of DUI in Orange County, North Carolina in 2014. He was arrested again in August of 2021 in Wake County, North Carolina, for, once again, DUI. This is, he was 2.5 times over the legal limit. He had no operator's license, so no driver's license. He was driving with an open container of alcohol in the vehicle. A vehicle registration violation, so probably expired tags. And he failed to appear in court in September of 2021, and a warrant for his arrest was issued on September 7th of 2021. So that apparently, I believe they said, we go back. Hold on, let me go back. I think says he was arrested in September of 2021. All right, so that's around the same time that they arrested him after they found the DNA. Was around the same time that as this arrest warrant was issued. for his failure to appear. Don't know if they were connected or not, but who knows. Okay, so some more information of how they came to arrest Mr. Oliveras. So 2 days before the announcement, investigators had obtained the suspect's DNA without his consent during a DWI traffic stop, according to the report. Now, you will say if his DNA was gathered without his consent, how could it be used against him to be able to use in court when his case goes to court? Anybody who follows true crime knows there are ways to obtain individuals' DNA without their consent. If they leave something in public, or not even in public, I've seen they're interviewing a potential suspect or person of interest. They give them a bottle of water. They leave. Hold on. Sorry, I thought somebody was coming in. They leave the bottle there. They get the DNA from the bottle. If anything, basically anything that's left in a public place can be taken and tested for DNA for an individual and can be used in court, as I understand it. So they said that the DNA found at the crime scene is a probable match to the suspect. Of course, they found the palm print on the weapon, which once again they say is the wine bottle, which matched Mr. Oliveras' left palm. Investigators also went to his apartment with a search warrant, of course, and they seized 6 cell phones and a laptop. And the authorities said that they wanted to see if the suspect was keeping any memories or communications from the crime. So I found that very interesting. Now, like I said, as of 2023, they have not released any information of whether or not they did find any information on the phones or the laptop. But I'm definitely going to be keeping up with this case, and I will let you know. Or if anybody else who has been keeping up with this case who's watching, please leave any comments of any information that you know that I don't know, that I haven't presented here so far. I would be very interested to know. All right, so we have Hunter Glass. Now, Hunter Glass was a private investigator who apparently worked on the investigating Faith's case privately, of course. Now, I do not know if he was working on the case at the request of Faith's family. I would assume that was the case, but I'm not for sure. So this Mr. Glass, like I said, who once worked Faith's case as a private investigator, he says he was not surprised when Mr. Oliveras was named as a suspect in Faith's killing. He said that the suspect's name had come up. I'm assuming he meant Mr. Oliveras' name had come up before he was arrested. And that Mr. Glass, believed that Mr. Oliveras had been at a party at Faith's apartment complex cul-de-sac. And I was going to get a Google map picture to put on here of the area, but apparently her apartment was in a little cul-de-sac and they had parties out there. So supposedly this Mr. Glass believed that Mr. Oliveras had been at a party at the apartment complex. He didn't stick out. He just seemed like somebody who was just milling around in the crowd. Now, he does go on to say, and this is where the alternate theories start coming in. He says, and I'm quoting what he says, "I would want to know why and who else knew. I don't believe that only one person knows this case, and I don't believe that there was only 2 and one can't tell us. So in other words, with that statement, he said he doesn't believe that only two people knew what happened, which would be Faith, who is the one who can't tell us, and the offender. He goes on to say, so I do believe that there were either other witnesses, or if not witnesses, at least people who heard something. They knew something, but they did not say anything about it because they were afraid that they would be implicated in it. So I got to thinking, or just in my thought process, maybe he was referring to, we go back to the butt dial voicemail, where it is believed, some people believe that this was the moment that Faith's life was taken. And that Faith's voice, a male voice, and another female voice were heard on this recording. Now, the people who don't believe that this was the time that Faith was killed said that it was just a butt dial that you can hear in the voicemail. You can hear music playing and just voices, and it sounded like it was came from sounds that you would hear in the nightclub that they were in. So, like I said, you can listen to the voicemail and make your own decision. So, of course, the Chapel Hill police have not said much about how the crime happened, despite the arrest in 2021. Now, in the past, they had said that they did not believe that the crime was a mere crime of opportunity by a stranger, and instead it was committed by someone in Faith's social group, likely someone who knew her through UNC, through the college. And they said that they were certain that the offender or offenders knew Faith. They interviewed 2,000 people. It's a lot of people, but they did their kudos for them for doing their due diligence. They interviewed 2,000 people. They did 750 DNA tests of the 2,000 people that they interviewed. They mapped the relation of many of those interviewees with Faith and each other. And so, in other words, they took all these people and did their homework to see who was connected, if any, who was connected to who knew who was where at a certain time, and you all know how that works. So they said that they narrowed a pool of 1,000 possible suspects down to 10. Of course, they didn't release, like, for any information I could find, they did not release the names of these 10 suspects they supposedly whittled it down to. They went on to say that this is not a cold case, that it was never a cold case. And this was Chief Blue told Tom Gasparelli in 2016. So we're going to get to Tom Gasparelli, who is an investigative journalist. I believe he has a podcast. You can search his name. But Mr. Gasparelli has some interesting things to say. So this is Mr. Gasparelli. So a year later, and I'm assuming a year after her Faith was killed, Mr. Gasparelli said that he believed that the offender was just outside of Faith's closest friends and acquaintances. So it would have been somebody that was not necessarily a friend of hers, but kind of milling around in the outskirts, maybe a little stalkerish. He said there was a good chance this person did not know Faith, or investigators would have known who it was. So that does make sense. If he had known Faith, of course, you would assume that the police would have, interviewed them at the very least. They may, however, have been acting out of anger at some grievance that she caused to someone closer to her. So that would take me back to And I'm just going on these alternate theories that people have come up with that don't believe that Mr. Oliveras is the one who took the life of Faith. But this comment that he makes about somebody acting out of anger at some grievance she caused someone closer to her would take me back to Mr. Jones, which was Faith's Karina's ex-boyfriend who had threatened to kill Faith. Just a thought. Just a thought. Like I said, right now we're just going through some alternate theories because I wanted to, when I do my videos, I try to, if there's more than one side, of people who say one person did it or another person did it, I try to bring you all sides so you can make your own decisions about what you believe happened. So Chief Ballou declined to answer Mr. Gasparelli's question at that time as to whether investigators believe that more than one person had been involved. That, to me, I would associate that back to the butt dial once again, where 3 voices allegedly were heard. He said it is a piece of the puzzle we do not have if we connect the direct physical evidence. So apparently, this is what Chief Ballou said in answer, or the answer to this question about if they believe there's more than one person involved. He's saying basically there's no evidence right now that we have to lead us to believe that there was more than one person. It was just this one person, Mr. Olivares. So Celisa Lehue, who took over the case as the department's new chief investigator in 2016, told Mr. Gasparelli regarding that theory that there was some knowledge that 2 people lived at the apartment. So she may have been trying to infer that maybe Faith was not the intended target. I don't know, that maybe Karina was, and that's why the paper bag was left there that says, I'm not stupid, be jealous. Could go back to Eric Jones. Apparently he was jealous and wanted to get back with Karina. Who knows? Anyway, feel free to leave your comments about any of this alternate theory information that I'm presenting you with here. I would love to hear what you guys think. All right. And once again, going back to Mr. Gasparoli, I hope I'm saying his name right, his theories. Another point of contention is the 911 call that was made by Karina. Some people believe that it wasn't actually Karina that was talking on the phone. It was Marisol, whatever her last name was, and she just, because if you listen to the 911 call, the 911 operator repeatedly asked the caller what her name was, and it takes a while for the person on the phone to actually give the name, and eventually she says that her name is Karina. So, but as far as Mr. Gasparoli says, to him, the 911 call raises many questions. He said it reeked of unusual. And he raised the possibility that Rosario's friend Marisol Rangel, whose voice sounds to him more like the person called, whose voice is on the 911 call. To him, her voice sounds more like the 911 caller, the constantly sobbing caller, he says. So he believes, he says it's a possibility that this Marisol was the real caller, who only later identifying herself as Rosario after repeated requests from the dispatcher for her name. And if it was Rosario, she never mentions, why didn't she mention that her friend Marisol Rangel was with her at the apartment? Now, granted, none of us know how we will react and how we will answer questions and what we will say. If, God forbid, we come into a crime scene of one of our friends, because that's another point of contention. I keep using that point of contention. Another that from the 911 call that Karina just didn't sound right. She didn't sound like she was upset and blah, blah, blah. But like I said, you don't know how. They said she sounded too calm, that she should have been more hysterical and blah, blah, blah. Everybody reacts differently. Like I said, she's probably in shock. Probably most definitely in shock. So, you know. Anyway, back to Mr. Gasparoli. He says she never mentions that Marisol accompanied her to the apartment. The caller also does not mention Faith by name. She was only mentioned as her friend. She had found her friend, which that to me that's nothing. I mean, I might say, if I'm calling 911, say God forbid if my brother or if I'm one of my brothers, I would not necessarily say, I'm not gonna say my brother's name on here, but I would not necessarily say his name. I would say I just found my brother, blah 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 blah. So to me, that's not unusual. And Mr. Gasparelli also goes on to ask, why does the caller seem reluctant to touch Faith's body despite repeated pleas from the dispatcher to at least see if she is still breathing? Once again, this is not unusual. I mean, if you've never got it, I hope none of y'all have never, that's watching, have never come across a crime scene. Me personally, thank God I have never come across a crime scene, and I hope never to have to. But it makes the deal. Why don't you touch it to see if you can help her? People, I mean, it's just if the person who finds the body, of course, the dispatcher doesn't know. They only know what the caller is describing to them. So it may be very apparent to the 911 caller that this person is deceased. There's nothing that can be done to help this person. And they either just don't want to touch it because they're just freaked out by it, which is understandable, or they might have some knowledge that, hey, this is a crime scene, don't touch anything. And I do believe, because I did listen to the 911 call after, I think Karina does eventually touch Faith's arm, and the 911 dispatcher asks, is it cold or is it warm? Karina says it is cold. So after that, the dispatcher does say, okay, don't touch anything else in the room, leave the bedroom, and go to the living room. Police and ambulances or paramedics are on their way. Don't touch anything else. So apparently the 911 dispatcher finally realized that, yes, the person that they're calling about is probably most likely deceased. And she does the right thing, says don't touch anything, leave the room, and wait for the police to get there. So if I'm making any sense, please let me know. If you have or if you don't agree with me, please let me know. Everybody's opinion is welcome here. Just always be respectful. Because if you're not respectful of me or anybody else that comments, you will get booted. I try to be nice. As long as everybody plays nice, everything is okay. Okay, so Mr. Gasparelli also asked if Rosario was not able to bring herself to do so, could she not have asked this Marisol to touch the body? Well, maybe Marisol didn't want to touch it either. He says, I have often thought that if it was Rosario, that she didn't call 911 the moment that she first saw Faith. I don't know what he means by the moment that she first saw Faith. Could he mean seconds, minutes, hours? And, of course, you're not going to The moment you walk in, you're not most likely not going to reach for your phone and call 911. You're going to be in shock. So you're probably just going to stand there for a minute, take in the situation while your mind processes what you're seeing. Then you might go and check to see if the person is still alive. And then you will call 911. So, like I said, this is just all Mr. Gasparelli, who is an investigative journalist and a podcaster. Now, I'm not saying that he's wrong, and I'm not saying that he's right. I'm just giving you this what he thinks. All right, so we come to, there's also been speculation that has been focused on Karina, who was, of course, Faith's roommate at the time. Due to her 911 call and the last texts that were sent from Faith's phone to Karina's former boyfriend, suggesting that Karina needs you more than you know. The woman who was addressed as Rosie on the voicemail, supposedly Rosie was a nickname for Karina because her last name was Rosario. The voicemail and her decision to leave now to me this doesn't make sense, and her decision to leave the apartment unlocked with, she claims, a sleeping Faith inside to go sleep somewhere else at 4:30 in the morning of the killing. Okay, so I never went to college, but to me this makes sense. You got two college girls, and they go to the nightclub, they come back. Faith, apparently she's gonna, and I'm assuming that they haven't been drinking because they are under 21 in the nightclub would not serve them alcohol, but now who's to say that they didn't get it somewhere else? But it does not, any, once again, information that I came across did not say whether or not either one of the girls were intoxicated. But anyway, back to my point I'm trying to make. To me, it would not be unusual for they come back from the nightclub. Faith says she's going to go to bed. Karina she's been trying to get a hold of her ex-boyfriend. Apparently, he didn't want to talk to her. She may be upset. She wants to leave. Maybe Faith didn't want to listen to her, about this Brandon person, ex-boyfriend. So she decides, well, I'm going to go stay with a friend and commiserate with her about Brandon. So she, in a hurry to get out the door, forgets to lock the door. Because I don't think, in my opinion, I don't think she intentionally left the door unlocked. It's just my opinion. Could be wrong. It says, although Karina has since left North Carolina, and she has said very little about the case since then, which is understandable. Mr. Gasparelli wrote in 2017 that he learned from his police sources that the authorities still regularly speak with Karina, and that she does cooperate with them and gives them any information they ask for if she has it. But according to, once again, this is just according to Mr. Gasparelli, the authorities do believe that there is more that Karina can tell them. And according to him, it sounds to me like Karina has been in the crosshairs as a key figure who knows more than she says she knows. Once again, this is as far as I know, because we cannot corroborate this police source that he cites. We can't know for sure if Karina knows more than she's telling. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. We just don't know. But go slide. But we do know that Mr. Oliveira's DNA was found at the scene on her body, and this was semen samples. So they were found. Semen was found on her body. His DNA was found on the supposed alleged weapon. It was also found on the bag that was left. The bag is the one piece of evidence that confuses me. I don't know about the bag. If Mr., because there's been theories that Eric Jones left it there because it says that I'm not stupid, I'm jealous. And he would have been wanting to get back with Karina. It could, and it didn't have any blood on it, blood spatter on it, which I said was unusual. It could have been that Mr. Oliveras had been stalking Karina. Maybe he had approached her. She rebuffed him, although in all the information I found, it never, or in any of the information the police released, they did not release anything. They would not say whether or not they knew for sure if Karina and Mr. Oliveras had been acquainted before, had known each other before. So it's possible he could have been stalking her and she rebuffed him or didn't pay attention. So that's why he scribbled the note. I'm not stupid. I'm jealous, whatever. That's just my thoughts. Anyway. Okay. So, almost an hour and a half. This is the longest video I've done so far. Anyway, so that was the case of Faith Hedgepeth. Like I said, as of 2023, Mr. Oliveras' case has still not been taken to trial. But if any of you know any information, once again, let me know in the comments. Or if I find any information, I will do an update video and let you know. So yeah, just leave me your thoughts. Do you think and another thing I go back to is all the experts, law enforcement, CSI people that I listen to, watch on YouTube and read about. They always say the evidence doesn't lie. His DNA, Mr. Oliveras' DNA was found at the scene, on her body, on the weapon, da 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 da. We went over it. So DNA is not perfect, and it's not 100% guarantee of what happened, but it's, when you have evidence like that, it's very, very compelling to use in a case against an alleged offender. Okay, so I'm going to stop babbling, because at this point I'm babbling now. I'm repeating myself. Most of y'all may have already turned the video off, but if you found this video interesting, informative, please give it a thumbs up. Leave your comments about what you think of this case, any theories you have. If you like what I do here at almost forgot the name of my own channel again. If you like what I do here at Southern Gal True Crime, please, if you haven't already, please subscribe. Sorry, I have a gnat flying around my face. Hit the notification bell to all so you won't miss any videos I upload. I upload 2 to 3 times a week. Mondays, Missing Person Monday. Fridays, I have the case of the week. Sometimes on Wednesdays, I'll do a special video of just some random true crime topic, or if there's any breaking or new information that comes out on high profile cases that are in the news, I will bring you that information. All right, I think that is all I have to cover. So this is Friday, right? This is my Friday video. Yes. At this point, I have no clue anymore. So I'll be back Monday with Missing Person Monday. So until then, please take care of yourselves. Be very careful out there. Take care of each other. This is another one of my mantras. Take care of each other, because that is the most important thing we can do in this life, is take care of each other. All right. So until Monday, I will quit babbling now, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.